let's begin. In 1, the Vikings explored North America long before Columbus, establishing a settlement in what is now Canada around the year 1000. 2, the Pyramid of Giza was the tallest structure in the world for nearly 4,000 years, until the construction of Lincoln Cathedral in England in the 14th century surpassed it. 3, Cleopatra lived closer in time to man's landing on the moon than to the construction of the Egyptian pyramids. 4, in ancient Rome, urine was used as a mouthwash because of its ammonia content, which whitened teeth. 5, during the California gold rush, some prospectors got rich by selling picks and shovels instead of digging themselves. 6, the shortest war in history was between England and Zanzibar and lasted only 38 minutes. 7, scissors, one of the most common everyday objects, were invented more than 3,000 years ago in ancient Egypt. 8, Napoleon Bonaparte was once attacked by a pack of rabbits during a hunting party he organized himself. 9, in 18th century England, a pineapple was such a major status symbol that you could rent one for a party. 10, Roman spies used goat's milk as invisible ink, writing messages that were only revealed when heated. 11, the city of Rome was not the capital of Italy when it unified in 1861. The first capital was Turin. 12, a man named Tsutomu Yamaguchi survived both atomic bombs in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. 13, in ancient Greece, farting in public was considered a sign of good taste and could be done as a compliment to the hosts. Self-routine, the iconic photograph of Che Guevara seen on t-shirts, is called Guerrillero Heroico and was taken at a funeral. 15, the Ming Dynasty in China built a massive fleet of treasure ships, some so large they made Columbus's ships look like a nutshell. 16, during World War II, a group of Polish soldiers captured a German fort with the help of a bear they had adopted. 17, Queen Elizabeth, Empress of England, fined anyone who wore clothing fancier than hers, as she considered it a challenge to her authority. 18, the first recorded taxi service dates back to the 17th century in London, using horse-drawn carriages. 19, the Mongols, under Genghis Khan, created the largest contiguous empire in history and promoted meritocracy over inheritance. 20, in ancient Egypt, cats were so revered that when one died, the family shaved their eyebrows as a sign of mourning. 21, the first cyber attack in history occurred in 1986, long before the internet was in common use. 22, the top hat was considered in its time an accessory as revolutionary and controversial as some modern technologies can be. 23, Julius Caesar was kidnapped by pirates in his youth, and after being released, returned to crucify all of them. 24, the Pioneer probe's plaque, launched into space, shows a nude man and woman, which generated controversy on Earth. 25, during the Great Depression, people cooked mud pies, made with dirt and grease to trick hunger. Or 26, the first television advertisement was in 1941, cost $9, and promoted a watch. 27, in ancient Sparta, young people were encouraged to steal food, but if caught, they were punished not for stealing, but for being discovered. 28, the national anthem of Spain has no official lyrics. It is one of the few national marches in the world that is only musical. 29, the last samurai was not Japanese. He was a Frenchman named Jules Brunet, who fought alongside the samurai in a rebellion. 30, the pastry war was a real conflict between France and Mexico, started because a French pastry chef demanded payment for his pastries destroyed in a riot. 31, the first computer virus was called Creeper and was not created with malicious intent, but as an experiment. 32, in ancient Rome, it was legal for a man to use divorce as punishment if his wife drank wine, as it was considered inappropriate for women. 33, the first living being to orbit the Earth was a dog named Laika, sent by the Soviet Union in Sputnik 2. 34, King Louis XIX of France had the shortest reign in history. It lasted only 20 minutes. 35, the builders of medieval cathedrals often left masons' marks, stone signatures that are the first examples of intellectual property. 36, in the 19th century, letters were sent to the dead through the postal service in a practice related to spiritualism. 37, the Ottoman Empire had a training system for its future rulers that involved princes fighting each other to the death. 38, the first historical selfie was taken in 1920 by a New York photographer in front of his company's studio. 39. Ancient Egyptians slept on pillows made of stone to keep insects away while they rested. 40. Morse code was developed by Samuel Morse, but it was his assistant, Alfred Vail, who expanded and perfected the system. 41. In Victorian England, it was believed that dust from Egyptian mummies had medicinal properties and was consumed as a remedy. 42. The first basketball game in history was played with a soccer ball and 2 peach baskets as hoops. 43. A translation error in the Treaty of Waitangi, foundational to New Zealand, caused lasting disagreements between the Maori and the British Crown. 44. The famous Hope Diamond, said to be cursed, was originally stolen from the statue of a Hindu god in India. 45. During the Cold War, the CIA ran a secret project called Acoustic Kitty to use cats as listening devices. 46. The city of Seattle, USA, was rebuilt over its own ruins after a major fire, raising the street level. 47. The first pneumatic mail system was used in London to send telegrams through vacuum tubes at high speed. 48. In ancient Babylon, doctors could be punished with the amputation of a hand if their patient died during an operation. 49. The first known mechanical clock was invented in China in the 8th century, long before it was in Europe. 50. The largest military parade in history was the Victory Parade in Moscow in 1945, with thousands of soldiers and tanks. 51. The Phoenicians, expert navigators, used a purple dye extracted from snails that was so valuable it became the color of royalty. 52. A man named Horace de Vere Cole became famous in the 20th century for organizing elaborate hoaxes, including disguising a group of workers as Ethiopian sultans to fool the British Navy. 53. The Battle of Karansebes was one of the most absurd, where the Austrian army mistakenly fought itself, causing thousands of casualties. 54. The first color television program was broadcast by the BBC in 1938, showing a floral parade. 55. In ancient Sparta, newborn babies were thrown from a cliff if they were considered weak or unfit for war. 56. The telephone was invented almost simultaneously by Alexander Graham Bell and Elisha Gray, filing their patents only hours apart. 57. During Prohibition in the United States, the government poisoned industrial alcohol to deter consumption, causing thousands of deaths. 58. King George VI of England, father of Queen Elizabeth II, had to overcome a severe stutter to address his nation at war. 59. The first animal to be successfully cloned was a sheep named Dolly in 1996. 60. Gladiators in ancient Rome were considered sports stars, had sponsorship contracts, and sold their own sweat as an aphrodisiac. 61. The island of Malta holds the record for the most intense bombing suffered by a location during World War II, even more than England. 62. The first organized fire alarm system was invented in England in the 17th century, using bells and night watchmen. 63. In ancient Japan, ninjas often disguised themselves as monks or artists to go unnoticed and gather information. 64. The famous painting, The Scream, by Edvard Munch, does not depict a person screaming, but someone horrified by hearing a sharp scream from nature. 65. The first commercial flight in history took off in 1914, connecting St. Petersburg and Tampa in Florida. 66. Vikings did not wear horned helmets. That is a romantic invention from 19th century opera. 67. In ancient China, dragon-shaped kites were used to scare enemies on the battlefield. 68. The first message sent by telegraph was, "What hath God wrought?" by Samuel Morse. 69. The city of Pompeii was buried by the eruption of Vesuvius, but many of its inscriptions and graffiti reveal the daily life of the Romans. 70. During the construction of the Panama Canal, it was discovered that mosquitoes transmitted yellow fever, which revolutionized medicine. 71. The last Tsar of Russia, Nicholas II, was a cousin of King George V of England, and they looked so alike they could be confused. 72. The first science fiction film in history was A Trip to the Moon by Georges Méliès, filmed in 1902. 73. In ancient Greece, there was an oracle at Delphi, where a priestess inhaled volcanic gases to give prophecies. 74. The world's first ATM was installed in London in 1967 and worked with special checks using radioactive carbon. 75. The 100 Years' War between England and France actually lasted 116 years. 76. Ancient Romans believed that unibrows were a sign of great intelligence. 77. The first artificial satellite, Sputnik 1, was the size of a beach ball and only emitted a simple beeping sound. We're 78. At the court of the Sun King, Louis XIV of France, nobles competed for the honor of watching him wake up in the morning in a ceremony called Le Lever. 79. The first writing system, cuneiform, was invented by the Sumerians not for literature, but to keep records of beer and grain accounts. 80. The famous treasure of the pirate Blackbeard was never found, and it is believed it may have been hidden in the Caribbean islands. 81. The plague of Justinian in the 6th century was a pandemic so devastating that it possibly killed half the population of Europe. 82. The first organized fire department was created in ancient Rome by a man named Marcus Licinius Crassus, who charged for the service and then bought the burning property cheaply. 83. The flag of the United States was designed by a 17-year-old student for a school project and only got a B- grade. 84. In ancient Egypt, pharaohs often married their sisters and daughters to keep the royal lineage pure. 85. The first person in history to survive going over Niagara Falls in a barrel was a woman, Annie Edson Taylor, in 1901. 86. The builders of Stonehenge transported the enormous stones from Wales, more than 200 kilometers away. 87. During the American Civil War, a Confederate general died by his own friendly fire after being mistaken for the enemy. 88. The first surgery with general anesthesia was performed in 1846 using ether. 89. The Inca Empire had no writing system, but used a complex system of knotted ropes called quipu to keep records. 90. Queen Victoria of England popularized the white wedding dress. Before that, women married in their best dress regardless of the color. 91. The first historical advertising sign was found in the ruins of ancient Pompeii, promoting a gladiatorial show. 92. Samurai in feudal Japan could test their new swords on corpses, or sometimes on unsuspecting passers-by in a practice called tsujigiri. 93. The Great Wall of China is not visible to the naked eye from space. It is a popular but scientifically inaccurate myth. 94. The first college American football game was played between Rutgers and Princeton in 1869, and it looked more like rugby. 95. In ancient Mesopotamia, breweries were mainly run by women who also invented beer. 96. The oldest known legal code is the Code of Ur-Nammu, which predates the famous Code of Hammurabi. 97. The famous Leaning Tower of Pisa has always been leaning. It began to tilt during its construction in the 12th century due to weak foundations. 98. The first modern Olympic Games in Athens in 1896 were largely financed by a Greek magnate named Georgios Averof. 99. The last woolly mammoth did not live in the Ice Age, but on a small island in Alaska until only 4,000 years ago. 100. The Greek philosopher Plato was sold into slavery by the king of Sparta after unsuccessfully trying to influence his government. If these 100 curiosities have impressed you, subscribe so you don't miss our next video. And now, on the screen, you have 2 videos that you're sure to enjoy.